one of the themes of the book is democracy is not just what happens on election day, it's what happens every day in between. The old way that we chose leaders was the caucus chose the leader. And when the caucus chooses the leader, and by the way, the caucus could also remove the leader, then that made the leader have to pay really close attention to the caucus and making sure that their concerns were being addressed and could really be held to account for them. When the leader has to be accountable to caucus that way, I would argue that's much more democratic than what we've seen time and time again, which is once the leader's got this mandate from the membership, he can basically just thumb his nose at the caucus. But oftentimes we'll see leaders get stuck in there long after their sell-by date. It's clear to everybody they have to go, but there's really no mechanism for removing them. So that was one thing. The other big step was in 1970 when we changed the electoral law to say that nominees for each party had to have the approval of the party leader to be able to stand as a candidate. So rather than the caucus choosing the leader, basically the leader chooses the caucus. The leader, nobody can run without the leader's approval. Most of the time, or at least half the time, candidates are appointed by the leader in the first place. They're not elected in competitive local nomination races. But then once they're in, even if they're longtime incumbents, they're utterly dependent on the leader's favor if they want to run again. So the combined effect of taking away the caucus's power to choose the leader and giving the leader this life or death power over the nominations of the MPs, plus all the powers that the leader and the leader apparatus have to give out favors to advance your career or retard your career, it's just left caucus members essentially in a very servile role. So if you're willing to stand as a candidate, you're probably pretty okay with this role. If you do have a kind of a rebellious streak, you'll get weeded out. You won't get the nomination. If you do somehow slip through, it'll get beaten out of you once you get to Ottawa, and not just by the party leadership, but by your fellow MPs, all of whom graduated from the same system and want nothing to do with any rebels who are going to rock the boat and get in the way of their chances of advancement.
Because the argument is that really it should be the membership that's choosing the party leader. And if the members of the party choose the party leader, that's more democratic.
Well, as I say, it's the members can't hold the leader to account day by day. There's a leadership review, but only after they lose an election in which he's the only candidate and he only has to get 2/3 of the vote typically. It's not a very effective means of holding to account. But the other thing I would say is that for people who want more local democracy and more power to the members, let's clean up the way in which we elect MPs. If MPs were more clearly seen to be the choice of the local riding association, then I think people would assign them more legitimacy to then be able to choose the leader. As it stands, as I mentioned, half the time candidates are appointed by the party leader. The remainder of the cases where there's a race, most of the time the races are decided by acclamation, i.e. there's only one candidate because everybody knows who's going to win. In the very few cases where, less than 1 in 5, where they're actually contested with more than one candidate, that's when you get the worst shenanigans with, busloads of instant members there and people staffing meetings. So, we really need to clean up the nomination race, partly for that reason, so that we'll have more legitimacy vested in MPs and therefore maybe make more of a case for giving them more power. But also, of course, as we've seen in recent times, the nomination races have become the point of vulnerability for foreign interference. It's hard to fix or to rig an actual election at the riding level in Canada because of the paper ballot system. But it's really easy, as we've seen, to smuggle people in and get your candidate chosen at the nomination level. And in a safe riding, as too many of our ridings are, then that ultimately really decides who goes to Parliament.
You've been listening to a clip of In Bed with the Elephant with me, your host, Adrian Harewood. Be sure to check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and write a review. We love hearing from you.